Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of In the Kitchen with Baker Girl. Thank you, Jesus. It is another beautiful day to be in the kitchen. Now, it is fall. Yay! But if you thought that canning was over and done and we can put away our canners just because it's fall, no, because we can still do fall canning. Fall canning is, at this time of year, it's usually apple butters, apple jellies, pear butters, pumpkin butters. And today I'm going to be making this spiced apple butter. And I'm going to do it in my Instant Pot. And I'm going to start it in my Instant Pot, and then I'm going to finish it in the oven. Now, you can use a slow cooker for this method, and you can make the entire recipe in a slow cooker. I don't have a slow cooker, so I'm going to use my Instant Pot and I'm going to use my oven. And actually, I prefer the oven method because once you get your apples cooked and pureed, you just put it all into the oven and the oven does the job. You give it a little stir every now and you just let it cook until it gets the consistency you like. So that's what I'm going to be making today. Now, before I jump into the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy it. And let's get on to our apple butter. Now, what kind of apples you use for your butter? You want to use an apple that you don't want to go for a Granny Smith because that's too tart for apple butter. And the best apple butter, if you cannot find the perfect apple, and I'll explain in a minute what I mean by the perfect apple, you can use a combination of apples. So you can use a combination of Pink Ladies, Galas, Granny Smiths. You want sweetness, because obviously you want sweetness, but you also want an apple that's got a nice amount of tart and not too much mush. Some apples like Golden Delicious, I never use those. They are, number one, they're highly commercialized apples and they really don't have that much flavor. And they usually just disintegrate into mush. So today I actually found these apples at a farm store. These are Jonna Gold apples. And if you can find them, they're the perfect apple to use because they are both sweet and they are also tart, kind of like a Pink Lady. They're very sweet, but then they also are tart. And they also hold their shape nicely. Now, of course, when you're making apple butter, you just puree the whole thing. But they don't just disintegrate into a complete pulp before they can even start cooking. Say like a Golden Delicious or a Red Delicious, which they have virtually no flavor, and you would need to add a lot of sugar. These Jonna Golds, they're not the commercial apple because they're not beautiful apples per se. I think they're beautiful, but they're not that glossy golden perfect apple in terms of looks for the commercial stores, but they're perfect for us home cooks because they have that nice little balance of sweet and tart. Also, you don't have to peel your apples for apple butter. And if you buy apples from a local farm or something and they haven't been sprayed, you don't have to worry about all, furiously scrubbing off pesticides. If you do buy apples from the grocery store, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure you give them a good scrub. And if, they look like they are really, really waxed, you may want to go ahead and peel them just to be safe. You're not getting pesticides. I'm not going to peel these because once the apples cook down, you puree the whole thing in a blender or immersion blender. The peels are going to get pureed anyway. So there's no need to worry about the peels because the peels are going to get pureed anyway. And I'm going to make a spiced apple butter. You could do just plain sugar and apples and you don't need to add anything else. But I'm going to add some spices because I like spices. Here I've got some cinnamon. This is broken cinnamon. It just kind of gets in there a little better if it's broken up. I've also got some cloves. I have a few allspice berries, and I also have 3 cardamom pods. And I'm going to add into the pot a vanilla bean pod. And you don't have to add the vanilla. I just like the idea of the apples and the vanilla and the cinnamon that really, really enhances the spice. And now the sugar is entirely up to you. I have 1 cup of raw natural sugar. You can use brown sugar. You can use regular granulated sugar. You can use a tiny amount of sugar. You can use a lot of sugar. It really depends on your apples and the sweetness that you like. You can make it without sugar whatsoever. You just need to let it cook down a little longer and a little slower so it gets to a good consistency and it's not soupy. The sugar helps to speed that along, and it also sweetens it up a little bit. These apples happen to be nice and sweet, so I'm just going to use a little bit of sugar today. But as I say, you can skip the sugar entirely if you want to. And that is all the ingredients you need to make a delicious apple butter. Now, I'm going to start chopping my apples and get them ready to go into my Instant Pot. The next thing to add in is our the cinnamon and the sugar and the spices. So I'm done chopping, so I can set this aside because I'm done chopping. Now I can go ahead and add my spices, my sugar, and my cinnamon, and I will add in a little bit of water just because I'm doing this in the Instant Pot. I don't want the apples to stick or the sugar to stick before the pot comes up to heat. Since Instant Pots, like all pots, their heat start from the bottom and go up, and they start with the intense heat at the bottom, and then it works its way on up. And that's why how you put things into the pot does matter. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a half a cup of water right on top of my apples. And then I'm going to add in my spices, and I'm not just going to throw all those whole spices in there. I'm actually going to make take a little piece of cheesecloth, and I'm going to make a little sachet of spices. That way the flavor of them gets in here, but I don't have to worry about the spices themselves running loose. So I'm just going to take one end of it and use it to tie just a little bundle like that. Give it a little tug, and there we are. And I'm just going to toss that into the pot. Make sure I nestle it down in there. Don't poke at it too much because the cinnamon can start to come out. I'm going to go ahead and add in my vanilla pod, and you can break this up into pieces or you can split it. Go ahead and split it and add it in however you want to do it. Add that in there. Now my fingers smell like vanilla. And I'm going to go ahead and add my sugar. Now I'm going to put the sugar on top because, and that's why I added the water in before I added the sugar. If I added the sugar and then poured water on top, I would wash the sugar down into the bottom, and you don't want your sugar to burn. So I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle the sugar on top now. There we are. And I'm going to add in a very, very tiny pinch of salt. And I just use pink Himalayan salt. You don't have to add the salt, but it just brings out the flavors. Not too much. You don't want it to start tasting savory. Okay, so I've got everything in the pot, and now I'm ready to head over and put this on into the Instant Pot and get it to cooking on high pressure. I'm going to cook it on high pressure for around 15 to 20 minutes until the apples are cooked thoroughly before we then puree the mixture. Okay, so the apples are done in the Instant Pot, and you can see how they've totally broken down, and you pretty much have apple sauce at this point, which if you wanted to make applesauce, this is where you would stop cooking. You would puree it, but you wouldn't cook it any further. But we're going to make apple butter, so we will be pureeing this. So now is a good time to remove our little bundle of spices. Go ahead and take that out. So now it's time to use the immersion blender and puree this. Before I do, I'm just going to give it a little taste just to see if I'm happy with the sweetness. So, smells good. Jesus. Oh, that's perfect. No more sugar needed. Okay, so I've got my immersion blender here. And I'm just going to puree this whole mixture, including my little piece of vanilla bean. So maybe I should have put on my full apron for this because I don't want splatters. Anyway, time to puree. It won't take long because this is already completely broken down. Good. Okay, all done with the immersion blender. That didn't take long. And you can see why there's no need to bother with peeling those apples, because you can't even tell there is any peels in here. It just pureed beautifully. Okay, now I have a roasting pan here. Now, you may ask, Sarah, why a roasting pan? Well, a roasting pan has wide surface area. Now, you can do this in your Instant Pot on the stove on very low, stir it often, and the liquid will evaporate. Because what you want to do is to evaporate a lot of the liquid. At this point, this is very liquidy. It's to the applesauce consistency, which is precisely what this is. At this point, if you want applesauce, you can ladle this into jam jars, process it, you will have a delicious applesauce. But in order to turn this into apple butter, you will reduce the liquid and cook it down until it's thick to somewhat mound on a spoon. So in order to help that go along a little quicker, instead of spending, so much time stirring and worrying about it on the stove, I'm just going to pour it into a roasting pan. This is why I'm not doing it on the stove, because you can't exactly get a roasting pan on the stove. And it just goes a lot easier in the oven. And it's also safer too, because I don't have to worry about getting popped and spattered and, by stirring a hot pot on the stove. So you can put it in the oven and you can forget about it. Now, before I slide this into the oven, one thing I do want to say, you do want to frequently give this a stir and check the consistency, because you don't want to overdo it. I have made peach butter the same way and kind of overcooked it, and then it gets a little too thick. So you don't want it to get too thick. So I'm going to go ahead and get this into the oven. All right, so my apple butter literally just came out the oven, and as you can see, it's reduced, it's nice and thick, and it's also very it's very brown looking, because as the sugars cook, they start to caramelize. So, and I stirred it about once every 15-20 minutes. And you keep it stirred because, like anything, it cooks from the outside in, so you just keep it stirred. It also keeps it from forming a skin, which you can do. Ooh, getting a little facial. Okay, so I've got my jars here. My jars are hot, and I just took out a few jars. And I don't know why I'm working on this, because I know I'm going to drop something on it. But anyway, there's no time to waste. It's time to ladle it into the jars. Let's go ahead and ladle it in. You want to do this while the mixture is nice and hot. So don't waste any time. There we are. Move over to the next one. And I did taste this before I, kind of was pleased with it, just to make sure that there's enough sugar, in case you wanted a little extra sugar. Now would be the time to add it. And I firmly believe in tasting as you go. It's like with all cooking, you taste as you go. With things like this, you can. Obviously, some things you can't. All right. Ladle it in there. And these jar funnels make life a lot easier. There we are. Smells so good. And this is going to be so good. You can spread it on pancakes, waffles, not to mention biscuits, toast, sourdough bread. You can also, this is going to sound a little funny, but you can use it as a fruit, as a topping for cakes. If you have, say like you have a gingerbread cake, you can always add some apple butter. When you serve it, you can serve it with a dollop of whipped cream and spiced apple butter. That would be delicious. Always wipe the rims off before you put your lids on, just to make sure your jar rings stay clean. And I've got my I've got a bowl of sterilized jar lids here, so I can just scoop up those and top up my jars as needed. And I'll finish tightening them up. Important thing is to just make sure that they're clean. The rings themselves don't necessarily have to be hot, but they do need to be clean. Ouch. That is hot. Okay, and I'm just going to, that's wet. Wet and heat is not a good combination, so I'll just use a paper towel. Just tighten it up to its fingertip tight. Thank you, Jesus. What a blessing it is to be able to put up your own food. So now I'm going to put these back into my boiling water, just to make sure they don't start to cool down, and I'll fill up my remaining jars using up the rest of my apple butter. So I've got all my jars in the canner, and as soon as the water comes up to the boil, I'm going to process these for 10 minutes. Now, I do want to say, if your apple butter, if you overcook it and it gets a little bit thick, no worries, just add a little bit of water. You can even add some apple juice or some apple cider would be good, just until it comes back to the consistency you want. Okay, the last jar of apple butter just came out of the canner. Oh, one is already popping. Oh, wow, that's quick. They are already popping, and oh, that's hot. But the recipe, that is hot. The recipe made 6 jars of apple butter, and we are really going to enjoy this winter with biscuits, waffles, pancakes, sourdough bread, toast. This is going to be so good. And the best thing of it is, it's not loaded with sugar. We used all of the apple, including the peels. And with a few spices, you can really, really take, something such as apples And if you happen to find some apples at a side, like a roadside stand or farmer's market, or even in your grocery store, it's still a good opportunity to put a little something up, so that when I always think because we literally live at the foot of a chain of mountains. So there's one big mountain not too far from right where we live, like literally right. Oh, there's another jar ceiling. So you got a good seal when they start popping right away. Now, if they don't pop right away, no worries. It can take them sometimes an hour, 2 hours to fully seal. So if anytime you're canning, your jars don't start popping right away, no worries. Just leave them be. They will seal. If they don't seal by the next day, then you may want to go ahead and refrigerate that jar. But we can have ice storms, we can have snowstorms, and it's always a comfort. We can also have a lot of power outages. And that's something that I do want to talk about really, really quickly. It doesn't need refrigerating. All you need to do is put it away on a shelf in your cupboard, in a closet, in your cellar, in your basement, under your bed, wherever you keep your food stock. This does not need to be refrigerated. And it's very easy. All you need is just open the jar and you can start using it. You don't need to worry. Once you do open it, you do need to put it in the refrigerator, obviously. But, oh, there's another one. They're showing out today. But this is good to go, and I don't have to do anything else to it but sit back and enjoy it and eat it. So if we have a power outage, or if there's a snowstorm or ice storm, or, one winter morning I want apple butter on my pancakes, this is delicious. All I have to do is open a jar and it is ready to go. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it inspires you to jump in your kitchen, go visit a farm stand, go stop if you see a roadside veggie stand or fruit stand or whatever. Especially this time of year in the fall, apples are really, really abundant in our area this time of year. So pumpkin as well, or pear. This recipe works with apples, pears. With the pumpkins, you're probably going to adjust it a little bit. But you can substitute the pears for the apples in this recipe and make the pear butter. So whatever you choose to make in your own kitchen, whether you're canning, you're pickling, you're boiling, or you're stewing, or you're baking, if you make it from scratch with love in your home kitchen, it is going to be delicious. In the meantime, enjoy, guys. Take care. Enjoy the fall. Get out there and get some veggies and do some canning. And the good Lord willing, I'll see y'all later in the next video. Take care, y'all. Bye.